The journal style lab report will be useful if you are going to graduate school, and it's likely you will be writing similar type of a lab report and submit it to a journal. If you are not going to graduate school for an industrial job, you still need to write certain type of a report. When I was working in the company in San Jose, the typical report will be a PowerPoint style, but the key point will be kind of similar as some of the sections in the journal style report. There are some general comments before we write the full report. Very important, do your homework before beginning to write. I would read the theory thoroughly of the experiment, and so that I can understand completely the theory. So in the lab report, I'm going to reiterate the experimental theory. So I have to understand it so I can put that down as my own words. Also, make sure you analyze your results and know your conclusions. And you should have your graphs or plots ready. You should have your final results calculated and also the uncertainty calculated. So you want to have a conclusion from your data. And for an in-person lab, when you come to a laboratory, you will write down everything in your notebook. When you write up your report, you should have your notebook ready for any data analysis. In experiment 2, you guys can discuss the experiment analysis and the plot graphs, whatever you have with one another, but the report itself must be independent work. The report has to be completely done by yourself. For the group work part, so later in this semester, when we do experiment 4, 5, and the lead group project, in those group of work, we can submit one report per group. And once again, the lab report, if you're turning that late, you'll be penalized the 5% points per day. No report will be accepted if it's longer than 2 weeks late. Report must be computer generated, and you can use Word and with EndNote. EndNote is the software you can find in our library. You should be able to have access to the license of EndNote. EndNote can be used with Word. Basically, what EndNote does is to collect all your references. Once you know what kind of a style you want to put in your reference list, the EndNote can do that automatically for you. So it's just a little easier for you to write the references. It's extremely helpful if you have a lot of references. So if you open a journal article, many articles have more than 20 references. If it's a review article, it can go above 100 references. So there will be a lot of references. Then in those cases, EndNote will be extremely helpful. However, in our case, because usually our reference list will contain approximately 5, I've seen students include up to 10 references. So EndNote is not required. If you want to try it, if you want to use it from library, you're definitely encouraged to do so. If you don't want to use EndNote, that's okay too. If you use EndNote, and if you have any question, you can let me know. I can work with you in EndNote. The other thing you want to use in Word is the equation editor. By using the equation editor, they'll make your equations look more professional. So I want to require you guys to all use equation editor for all the equations that's going to be written in your lab report. You can use Excel for graphing the data point. You can use other software as well, as long as you can get the same information, mostly the regression analysis and uncertainties. As beginners, you'll be required to write the lab report in following sections. So first section, title, and after that is abstract, and then introduction and theory and experiment and result, discussion, references. And then appendix 1, there'll be your sample calculation. This part can be handwritten. Appendix 2 is required for in-person lab. You may include all the raw data in the appendix 2. The report with the missing sections will be returned for completion. At the meantime, you'll get a 10-point automatic deduction. The first part is title. In your title, make sure you want to be a little more specific and descriptive with what studies have been done and how the study is done, what's concluded or determined in your study. You want to include that information. In our experiment 2, one example would be, in the past, a student would put vapor pressure lab as the title of the report. So the problem with vapor pressure lab, they'll be too general. There are so many substances can have vapor pressure. It's not clear how the vapor pressure is measured and what your conclusions are. So in this case, I would put the title as this one. So determination of enthalpy and entropy of vaporization of ethanol and the cyclohexane by temperature-dependent vapor pressure measurement. So in this title, even though it's a little longer, but it shows what's studied. So here, the vaporization of ethanol and the cyclohexane, two chemicals vaporization process are studied, and what determined or what concluded is the enthalpy and entropy, and how do we conduct the research? That'll be by temperature-dependent vapor pressure measurement. So you can look up some journal articles, then you might find their topic, their title is always kind of long, and the authors usually try to include that information. What's studied, how studies stand, and what's determined. And after you write your title, make sure write down the author's information. That's also part of the title. Write down your name and your partner, if you have any. And then after that will be the contact information. The purpose to publish an article is for other scientists to repeat your experiment. If when other scientists are repeating your experiment, they have issues, they have questions, or they cannot repeat your experiment, you need to provide your contact information so that others can make a contact with you and ask you questions. So remember, in our in-class exercise, looking for the AlphaFold, I ask you guys to look for the contact information for specific authors, right? So if you have issues, have questions, then you can always make a contact to those specific authors. After you put your name down, you want to put your contact information. In here, I'm going to ask you guys to put the class number and the university names there, and also put down the date.